Making a movie is daunting. Whether it be a short, or a feature, or a commercial, or a music video, they're all just different forms of making movies, and they're f***ing hard. They require a ton of planning, a lot of time. They're almost never going to be cheap. And worst of all, they're probably not even going to be that good. And we might look fondly back on our experiences with our first movies, but the end result is just cringy. But that thing I mentioned just a second ago, our experience, it makes it all worth it. Making movies is so much fun. Getting those little moments in the camera, getting good performances, finding the right edit, it's just pure joy. But even this pales in comparison to one of the greatest experiences a filmmaker can have on a film. It doesn't happen often. In fact, it's pretty rare. But I have experienced this once before. It was on my film, Severus Snape and the Marauders. But you've probably never seen this movie. It's only got a handful of views, right? So let's start with a movie you probably have seen. In fact, it's 3 movies, and they might be some of the greatest movies ever made. This trilogy is just so great. They're almost 20 years old, and they hold up as timeless. These movies easily could have been really screwed up. I mean, it's happened before.
You cannot pass. Go back to the shadow.
But they weren't. They came out as masterpieces, and it has everything to do with the phenomenon mentioned earlier. It's a phrase coined by director Sidney Lumet in his book, Making Movies. The phrase goes, "We're all making the same film." If you're an aspiring director, this book is required reading. It has so much gold in terms of filmmaking wisdom, you could buy a country. Sidney talks about blocking, working with actors, interacting with crew, and facing the hardships of the industry. Oh, and if you haven't seen his movies, see them. He's one of the greatest filmmakers that ever lived. If I had to pick required viewing of his films, it would be 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon, Network, and Failsafe. Watch Network if you want to see a movie that predicted the current state of news 40 years ago, and watch Failsafe if you don't mind not being able to sleep for a week.
Answer me, please!
But back to his book, he mentions several times the experience of everyone making the same film, and how important holding on to that experience is for both yourself and the movie you're working on. So what does the phrase "making the same film" really mean? In the book, Lumet writes, "In every movie I've done that I thought was really good, a strange phenomenon was reached that surprised both the writer and me. All of the individual contributions from all of the different departments add up to a total far greater than their individual parts. Movie making is very much like an orchestra. The addition of various harmonies can change, enlarge, and clarify the nature of the theme." What he's saying is the cast and the crew truly understood the type of movie being made and contributed their own talents to enhancing the film. The actors get inspired and creative. New ideas come to the cinematographers, editors, and music composers. The crew are willing to work extra hours to get the film to be the best it can be.
Helm's Deep? Hell. That's it. 3 months of night shoots.
I feel like when you watch a movie that just seems to click perfectly throughout, and that just seems to resonate through its craft and execution, it's likely because of this phenomenon. And Lord of the Rings has it in spades. It's just so obvious that every cast and crew member loved working on these movies. The prop makers made real swords. None of them were fake swords, shields, or armor. Some insane person or persons handcrafted chainmail for the costumes.
They'd actually worn the fingerprints off their fingers.
The stuntmen often worked 24-hour days without complaining. Viggo Mortensen slept in his horse's stable to gain its trust. Instead of going back to the hotels between days of shooting, the cast sometimes decided to stay on location and go camping. They even got matching tattoos. You guys thought the cast of the Avengers did that? No, these are the original Avengers. All 3 films were shot at once, which I think was a really, really smart choice on the part of the filmmakers because it created a powerful, long-lasting bond between everyone who worked on them. They knew how special this was, so they put their all and more into making these movies. This is what I'm talking about when Lumet says they're all making the same film. Okay, back to my film that you probably haven't seen. There were so many little moments on Snape and the Marauders that proves the point I'm making. On the day of the bar shoot, we had 11 pages to shoot in one day. We couldn't get a second day on that set. We just couldn't afford it. So we had a lot to get through. But two magical things happened that day, and I am using that pun on purpose. The first is the opening minutes with the cast of the Marauders was completely improvised. I mean it, we came up with a basic story on the spot that they could ad-lib and had nothing to do with the plot. The skill of these actors and their commitment to the material not only made it possible, it was a no-brainer for everyone involved. I kinda planned this by making these four rehearse a lot more than usual and gave them a solid bond of friendship. It worked because we all still hang out together. The second thing that happened was with the background actors. We had to get at least 20 people to fill up a bar, and we couldn't afford to pay anyone. Even though we raised quite a bit of money, that budget belt was tight. So I was a little concerned, but I really shouldn't have been. Despite the fact that I hired wardrobe to help with the background actors' costumes, they dressed themselves. Turns out most of them were Harry Potter fans, and they were also ecstatic just to be there, even if it wasn't an official Harry Potter film. So many times stuff like this happened during production. The director of photography saw new shots and new opportunities at the same time I did. The camera operator saw a chance to get a cool shot and took it without my direction because they knew it would work. This shot with Snape looking insanely badass was improvised by the Steadicam operator. By the way, his name is Thor, and his Steadicam rig is named Mjolnir. I'm not kidding. The sound designer took everything to the next level. The visual effects artist did insane things I did not expect. This matte painting was made by the guy who made this poster. Why? Because he really dug the movie we were making. And if all of this hasn't blown your mind enough, our music composer did this. Don't ask me how, I still don't know how. So when do you know that you have a film that's on this level? I think the first thing to ask yourself is, do I love it? Is it all I can think about? Is there nothing else I want to do? It's your job to convey that excitement, and so long as it's genuine, it won't be that hard. There's all kinds of people skills that come along with getting a film made, but if you can convey that passion and prove that the passion can be shared, you can find your team and you can get your movie made. The second thing to do is prepare, and get every aspect of your production involved in preparation. Rehearse with your actors. If it's a feature-length film, fight for at least 2 weeks of rehearsal. The more they rehearse, the better they will truly understand your film. The better they understand it, the more they will contribute to its quality. And third is the better prepared you are, the more room there is for spontaneity. This can be expressed when an actor has an idea. For example, this scene in my film where James catches the rock, the script called for it nicking his face. But Garrett insisted James should catch it because James played Quidditch and wanted to be a seeker, so of course he would catch it. Sometimes this can come in the form of happy accidents. For example, in The Two Towers, this kick, Viggo's amazing scream right here, that was somewhat improvised because the kick broke his toe. Viggo fully embraced and understood his role and ran with the pain he felt, putting it into his character. Most other actors would yell cut and call for a medic. The most committed will keep going. Spontaneity and happy accidents are huge factors in the magic of a great movie, so the better you and your team understand and embrace what the film is about, the more often this will happen. Movies skyrocket in quality due to people seeing that you're making something really special. They forget about the extra time, the stress, the sweat and the tears, and when you have an experience like this, you won't forget it for the rest of your life. So if you can take anything from this video, anything at all, take this. When you know you have something special on your hands, and everyone else on set knows it, let them loose. Let them try new things. Because I guarantee 9 out of 10 times, their ideas will add to the quality of your film. When your cast and crew are making the same film, embrace it. I promise you will have something great. Alright, that's all I got for this video. It's the first of a new series on a new channel. The idea here is to dig into the more nuanced aspects of a director and what it means to be a filmmaker. I'm hoping to talk about how to work with actors, different rules in filmmaking and how to break them, how to understand theming, pacing, and a whole lot more. So as you've likely gathered, I've made some films, which you can see on a playlist at my films channel, Broad Strokes Productions. If you like what you see here, I humbly ask for your subscription and maybe even tell your friends. And if you know any other movies where you think everyone was making the same film, or you've had an experience like this with a movie or really any project, let me know in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching and happy filming!